He says you can cut across the unit if you buy it right away. He went to drop the line in front of his property. It would be interesting. That would be interesting to see how Laurie and Daryl's works out. I don't know what the final price was for it. I mean, I know it went down 15,000, but that was before the tariff map, so I don't know. Because the first price they were quoted, I think, was 50, but I think they got it for 35. I think. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like being like Jesse. At my house is the first one that was. When I put it, I told him.
I'm still debating.
No one else. I'm sorry.
I don't have anything on my schedule here tomorrow.
But I don't
have anything in mind tomorrow.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Right.
All right, it's all set.
Right. All right, we will start with fire and EMS. Anyone has questions or concern, discussion on any items?
Follow report at the end of the year. I'm looking at the 24-25 budget complete. How many calls you got?
We have them, yes. They all, every call that comes in is followed with state of Maine, and
Do you have to summarize that?
we can print it right out.
So you haven't done it?
Yeah.
Today?
No.
Any idea what the numbers are?
I think around all calls was 2,600, but I can find that out.
And that's both fire and emergency.
Yes.
Any of those calls outside of the town limits?
No, yeah, mutual aid. We go to Howland, we go to East Millmarket, we go to Millmarket, we've been to Milford, but they also come here.
So percentage wise?
Oh, well, very low percentage. I would say probably no more than 15 mutual aid calls.
Mhm.
We run both Chester and Wynn as if they are Lincoln for fire purposes.
Yes.
There is no border.
Is there a budget that they provide, do they kick in?
Yes,
How much do they kick in, this total budget from the
it's a few pennies under 300,000 between the two of them for a year at this point.
Yeah. Now, you said that was Howland?
No,
Chester and
Chester.
Wynn.
Justin,
So that's different than the amount here, 203,000, so 300 now?
It should be.
Do you know what it,
I think it's still a few pennies under 300, but
that's about 150 each or?
Oh, no, more from Chester. Chester has a slightly larger population than Wynn.
yes.
Chester's at 5.
The last contract that we signed, I can't.
Yeah.
so you contract with them like per call, so much per call?
we contract with them on an annual basis because what they are paying for, and a big part of it, is that we are here now and ready to go. If they call in 30 seconds, we're ready to go. You gotta pay for those people 365 days a year, heat the building, etc. And the same with paying for the bigger equipment. It's there for them as for us, 365 days a year. So a lot of these little towns want an arrangement whereby they say, I can hire Joey with a little bulldozer for $50 an hour, so why can't I hire a fire truck for $50 an hour? Because Joey isn't ready for you 365 days a year. That's the reason. And we are struggling right now, we're working our way through it right now. We got into a situation with both fire and emergency medical where we had effectively different rates in different towns, and the towns want, some of them wish to negotiate with us. We've gotten to the point we don't negotiate with them. We have this formula, which both Wynn and Chester are operating on and paying it, and that's the same formula we offer to the others. The only differences are they buying both fire and emergency medical, or are they buying only one as opposed to both?
For which one are they doing both?
For those two towns.
Chester and Wynn, yes. The others are all only buying emergency medical.
Now, when you say others, who are the others?
You have replantation and Drew plantation. And McQuahog.
Then we're currently discussing with Woodville and Mattawamkeag.
If I remember correctly, we don't charge like a flat, like
No,
20, 30,000, 40,000
Well,
dollars.
we're charging, we just jumped it to $152 per capita.
yeah, whatever that became.
It's a formula. We take the budget and then we divide it by how many people we have in town, and then we multiply it by theirs, and it's still at 80%.
Do we add anything for distance?
No.
No, we did not. But we charge the patient mileage when we transfer the patient. We charge them the $350 loading fee plus any supplies or whatever level ALS or basic level support, and we charge mileage for transport.
Can we ever send a fire truck or anything?
The only time we'd probably send a fire truck, I'm not gonna say we never do, but usually we do not. If the crew got in a mess where they need it for a lift, or we had something really wrong, then there's a good chance we would.
I mean, it might be something to consider to only do fire units together.
Well, we could. There are people wondering about the community now who say we do not charge enough. And if we charge more, I'm pretty confident that Wynn will then go with Lee, and Chester will then go with Howland, and we'll lose that almost 300,000.
And is it still a case where Lee's transferring to us for every EMS call?
No,
No.
no. Lee's has their own ambulance service. They transport right to the hospital.
I know that was part of.
That was at one time, but now they transport right to the hospital. But again, I don't think we want a lot of truck and fire truck going like the Reed plantation, Drew plantation, even, Maryland on a steady basis, because then it wouldn't be here for us.
Right, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should keep them in town more than,
The difficulty with two people in an ambulance going on some calls is, and sometimes you know in advance and sometimes you don't. A, if the ground is particularly icy, we've had a number of workers' comp cases come out of that because there's two people trying to pick up the person and the stretcher and so forth. And when you get to a 300 or 400 pound person, two people aren't much gonna lift them up.
I mean, that's just that's just my feeling, like, Chester, Wynn, even that one gig would be slightly different. The ones right around us, but the ones that are further out would be,
yeah.
it would be higher.
That's right.
I would be wanting to charge kind of more of
All
a.
those towns, like Reed and Drew, they have a responding fire department that goes to help lift assist for us. So,
Even in that case, like, if we're trying to take $3,000 a year, I charge 30,000, 40,000, kind of we don't want to do it, but, pay us then more than enough to cover our costs. I mean, looking at the cost, we're at 2 million, and I, looking at the wages, I'm assuming the annual, union increases aren't in here.
There's no increase in fire at this time. However, when we did the three union contracts 2 years ago, police and public works agreed to 3-year contracts. In Maine, with public employees, the longest the contract can be is 3 years. However, since fire was asking to go from a 56-hour work week to a 42-hour work week, which, much to my surprise, the council approved it with almost no comment, that caused us to get 30% more people to keep the same coverage in place. But they would only agree to a 2-year. They wanted to come back because they took those first 2 years with almost no money increases. That's fine. They're coming back, 3 weeks now, something like that. And they're gonna be asking for money. It's that simple. They're gonna be asking for money.
And is it gonna be in this upcoming budget?
Their new contract will begin somewhere around July 1. Prior to my being here, we had all 3 union contracts that they all began at the end of 3 years on the same day. It was about impossible to negotiate and work with. I wanted to get them spread out. I got them spread out, but not very much. Public Works now is in June, Police is maybe in August or something. We've got them spread out a bit. I'd like to get them spread out even further, so we'd have a little more time to talk and work on things. But at any rate, yes, this will come effectively at the beginning of this fiscal year.
So we need to put that in this budget.
We will when we find out what it is. We have no idea what it is at this time.
What's been the number? It's been anywhere from 5 to, I think some folks been 10%.
Yeah, and where they got effectively none in the last 2 years, even though they did reduce their work week from 56 hours to 42. They've already effectively told us, we're coming in for one thing, money.
And you have no leverage whatsoever.
Well, sure, we can not go into a contract and wait it out and see how it goes. Not that it's particularly important to you, but the city of Bangor did that for 10 years when they went from 56-hour work week to 42. And at the end of 10 years, the Maine State Labor Board gave them like a 30% across the board raise.
But we haven't even been,
That's right.
we don't know what they're asking yet. We don't know, but surmise them. We don't know what they're gonna ask for yet.
But they basically have a blank check. They just,
No, they don't have a blank check. They have to negotiate with the council.
they have nothing to negotiate. There's no leverage here.
Yeah, we have very little for leverage, but
I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
the council can either approve the proposed contract or not, as the case may be.
So it's basically handing in my checkbook and you fill out what you want.
Well, I don't like to feel that way about it, but
How many are on duty at the time? 5, 24/7.
Yes.
But we've got a lot of money invested in them for training and stuff.
That's correct.
So if we don't be reasonable about it and lose them, it's gonna cost us.
very good point. The money we have in these people, we had firefighters who had no training toward being emergency medical technicians, and we had to hire some people off the street because we just plain needed people, and we couldn't hire people who were trained that way. And it is shocking, I almost go with depressing, as to how frequently they are in schools, how very few of those schools are anywhere near here, and because life is as it is today, we're paying to transport them to Augusta, Holton, Portland,
But we did get around $75,000 in grants this year to help,
just recently, yes.
to help with the training. So,
But it goes on and on and on, because when you've got someone who is scheduled to work today, but they don't, they go to training, now you gotta schedule someone else to replace them. The cost of this is spectacular.
And just like, my point, like, not playing, but they want 10%. I'm not good with it. They're, yeah, just looking at what we have here, knowing that, you know, there could be another 150 or $170,000 increase in the budget. We're offsetting it by 300,000, but we could be offsetting it by quite a bit more if we were charging more. And looking at the EMS revenue, is that look to be about accurate, the 580,000? Is that?
I think that's a touch.
Yeah, we started out at 750 is what we had anticipated the very first year when you were on the council. And as we're realizing, we're trying to bring it down to accurate numbers. So the 500 is.
How much are we writing off every year?
Not a lot.
No.
I do get a monthly report, but of course, because of HIPAA, I can't, just release the whole entire report. But there's not a lot of write-offs on there.
So we're collecting basically everything that
Yeah.
we're putting out.
well,
Close
I'd say
to.
maybe 5%.
yeah, main care, we're probably 55%.
Yeah.
We're sending out, 25% we're not, because main care doesn't pay anywhere near the main care. And whether we get a check from them, that's the biggest problem. Main care does not pay well.
The checks are exceptionally slow, and they know, the state of Maine knows, they're not paying just the raw cost of running these calls, but they don't seem to be doing anything about it. There are items before the legislature this time through to change that, but they have been for the last few sessions of the legislature, and I have my doubts as to whether it'll survive. And this is what Main Care is doing to all ambulance services in the state.
No, unfortunately, not, they all make care. Is make care your, like, percentage wise, how many, is it 50% of your?
Well, I'd say 50% easily.
Which
Yeah.
we just went through an increase in the EMS, the ambulance
That's right.
fees.
So that
What,
should
2 months
stand
ago?
it. Yes.
But that doesn't change what Main Care pays.
No, but it changes what everybody else
You
pays.
see, a lot of things that's happened to us right now is your assisted living places around Lincoln, whatever, is they put a no lift policy for their employees. So if Grampy falls on the floor, we're sending a crew to help pick them up.
And we're billing them now.
But we're billing them now. So that's gonna be a big plus.
You know, so we bill them for that?
Yes, billing $300.
Does that cover our costs?
That covers the cost, yeah, because we, in town, we don't call anybody in. We just use people that are on duty.
It's still an issue like on the interstate, as far as getting paid on calls out there.
Yeah, but we only get 4 or 5 calls a year out there.
It's not.
But no, if they get insurance, insurance will pay. And just like your medical insurance, it'll pay. So really, it's not a big problem. It's just that we think that the county should have paid us more
That's right.
just to be there.
Yeah.
You know, just to be there, because we're sitting there at their beck and call. But the patients are paying. It's just that we think we should be getting paid.
Well, like you said, 300 probably the time spent on that. It's not counting people on standby waiting for that.
That's right.
Now, just for, if we didn't do, say, Manchester, we would still have 5 people on duty.
Yes,
So that's just the amount.
that's a plus.
They're helping us.
That's a plus. It's good for them, it's good for us.
I did
some.
some,
I mentioned 5 other places, right, that you've got proposals into on Reed Plantation.
No, we've already got them. The only place we got right now is
I thought you said you only had Chester Wood.
we're doing, got a proposal into Woodville and a proposal into Metawaska.
Those two, your proposals. Now, where'd you give them for proposal?
Same formula as with Wynn and Chester.
I think it's 152 per population for fire and 148, I mean for EMS, 148 for fire. It's a little over $300 per capita.
I did stop by the station the other day and Russ was very good. I looked at their turnout gear. Some of it's in pretty rough shape. Holes in it, tears. It's pretty well worn out. So that's kind of a safety issue, I feel.
And that is something that if you go on the first sheet on the uniforms, there should have been. When I met with the town manager, I had $40,000 in there and he cut me down to 20,000. But after talking with him this week, he said to put it back up to 40, but it's not included on your sheet. It'll be right under the uniforms, fire EMS uniforms,
extra
officer
40?
uniform. Yes, it's $40,000.
So your total's gonna be 83.
No, the total up here will be 56,200.
Just one last thing on my thought on the, that's the thing on the other town contracts. So looking at the budget, I think I saw that we had signed with the maintenance of men or someone a 3-year contract or I don't know what, but I was just trying to, unless we're building a 10 or 20% increase year over year, and maybe.
The new formula we're using does have an annual increase to these towns, so that it's already done, and we don't have to debate it with them annually. I've forgotten what percentage we used.
It's not like 1-year contracts, everybody. It's,
yeah.
just like your budget. If, say, next year, I don't think there's, just from, where I don't think there's any plans for like next year to like buy a, truck, fire truck is $1 million, certain, costs.
But new purchases go into that formula of what they're paying.
But they're on,
Yeah,
small,
that's right.
they might pay like $10,000 on a $1 million truck, whereas we're only the 1%, 10%. I always look at the paying insurance, they're paying us the, maybe an additional paying their percentage of that, but that's just fine. Or keep that separate when we do the purchases. They come. So,
Personal development, I noticed last year, you only spent like 25% of the budget. You anticipate,
Professional development usually is from now for the next 2 months, a lot of the classes and stuff that we're gonna be attending. So we will be.
They're sure.
in 23-24, you only spent 41% for the whole year.
Large turnover in 23 and 24.
Yes. We're spending a lot more than that this year because right now I have 2 people in paramedic school, 2 people in advanced school, and 2 people in basic MP school. And the 2 people in paramedic school is Pascal, and the advanced are in Bangor, and the basics are in Bangor. In fact, we have one that's a big one in Norwich Walk. That's the place where they get it in. But they're just not offering courses. The state means not offering courses. So
Those are required courses.
they're required courses, and again, we have grants to pay for their tuition and mileage and some of their wages.
Where does those grants show up in the revenue? They don't.
The grants, they aren't included in revenue, because you never know. These grants were applied after the budget was already done, and they're also going to be paid out to us prior to the end of this fiscal year. Bruce is working on closeouts on one of the grants right now.
And then
How do we
back
take that
in.
into account in the budget?
It's done as a general ledger account. When the grant comes in, we spend from it until the grant's spent out. So it's not part of the budget or the revenue side.
Shouldn't be.
No.
So,
Neither are any of these economic development grants that Ruth Burt's is getting. Those are run the same way. Because you never know if you're gonna get approved for a grant or not. You can apply, and just because of the nature of when they're due and things like that, you can't run them as part of your budget.
Until they're awarded.
Well,
So-
but then your budget's already in place, so you can't really put it into your budget or your revenue side.
so just for a simple term, like if you had a $10,000 grant for uniforms, you're gonna have that, and then at the end of the budget, when the budget's done and the council sees all the leftover money, there would be $10,000 left over in uniform.
Correct.
And
If,
then that
if
goes,
it wasn't spent for something else outside of that grant.
and then
Right.
at the end of it, that gets applied to the new budget to offset the new budget.
The only kind of grant that we ever put in this budget would be the airport grants, because they are so large, and we have to be able to account for them with Hoyle Tanner and the federal government. And that is the only grant you'll ever see, because those get pre-approved years before the project even starts.
But you will with development too. You will have a $5 million grant. that
And
doesn't
those
show
are
up in the
through
budget.
TIP, and those are run a little different than
Right.
this, yes.
Les, how much, just ballpark, what does one of these classes cost? And
Well,
any one of these you want to pick?
I think the paramedic courses right now, just for the class itself, is 6,200.
6,200. So that could be for a new employee that just needs this other credentials so they can fulfill an obligation for us.
Well, that's the paramedic class, so that's the third step. Basic is first, and that's, I think, just the class itself is around 2. And then the advanced class would be like 35, and the
Okay.
paramedic class.
So does this employee make a commitment to us that they'll work for us
Yes.
for a year or 3 years? Or if they quit
Yeah.
early, do you get some of this money back, or does someone pay you back?
They are supposed to pay us back, and the agreement that they will pay us back, the written agreement.
Well, it's typical in
Yeah, that's
healthcare.
right,
They
that's
send
right.
you to a class, you quit within 3 months or 6 months, you're paying for that class. So, okay.
But with these ones, a couple of these ones, we couldn't do that because the government grants.
Okay.
The government grants is paying for them.
this does not work the same way it does with police. When police go to Vassalboro,
Right,
there is a schedule and they have to stay with us. And ultimately, if another town's gonna take them, we say they have to buy them from us.
right.
That does not happen with this.
Oh, so you can educate someone, they can walk and you can use all your time and money. Okay.
But these government grants, so we got state grants, they're great right now. Just trying to, we're sending to people pretty much free of charge, so.
And is our pay scale reasonable for this area?
It's getting low. It's getting low, and that's the scary part, is losing our medics, as much as we get them trained. But that's what we're trying to hire local people and train them up.
Right, right.
And so that way we're not hiring someone from Bangor and train them and have them go back to Bangor.
Yeah.
We're trying to, local people, local taxpayers, when we can, and that way hopefully they'll stay here.
And the same problem with police, and fire, any
Right.
reasons that they can up pay like 20-30% the
Right.
what go on, then they'll offer up their pay.
Right.
Yeah.
Up our pay, and it's just a cycle of it. And then on the police side of things, then you got this big police and sheriff, everyone, and Bangor, they coach everybody, so.
Same thing in healthcare. Anyone that's good. Someone's
But this is gonna sound terrible, but we're fortunate here because we have a lot of fires. So the guys love to fight fire, and that's why they're here. And they have a lot of fires, and that keeps their interest in the farm. I mean, you don't want to push for fires, but it does keep their interest.
Dangerous Hogan.
That's right. That's right.
Well, also too, though, I think supporting education shows you're invested in them too.
That's right.
It says, you know, they're getting something.
We've got an excellent 20 people there now that's very dedicated, and they like to come to work. They come to work at 6:30 in the morning, they have to be at 7. And when I drive in at 4:07, the radio's going out in the bay, and they're already doing the daily checks. They're getting them over and done and ready to go. So we've got a very dedicated crew here now, so it's fun going to work.
Is there an oversight on the vehicle fuel? You haven't got a budget for that.
Melissa adds up
So
she adds up the
Yeah.
gallons for
he
that.
gives me the gallons, and then just before we go to the council with numbers, I will check with, Dysarts who we currently use and get our cost and put it in there. There's prices, gas changes so much so often. So all of the departments, I will go through just before it gets printed for the council and change those numbers and make sure
Not just here, but in all departments.
all the departments that have fuel will have those numbers changed.
But you don't know how many miles are going to burn in a year, right?
He
Yes.
gives me gallons.
They're all pretty good at that.
Yeah,
They get gallons and miles. They don't-
you track it on that site, correct?
No, we track it by the slips. All the
Yeah.
slips come,
Right, and then they're put in.
So every year, it's predictable how many gallons you're going to burn.
it's predictable what we used last year. So we know what we used last year for this year, so.
You just know how many calls, and I assume you look at your calls too, and say that they're fairly consistent throughout the year.
You know, really, we don't look at the calls for miles. We look at the gas that we used the previous year, the gallons, and go by that. We go by the gallons. It's pretty hard to predict, how many times we're gonna go to Reed, or how many, but the previous year, we can tell pretty much by the gallons we use, by trucks and ambulances.
Let's say year over year, it's been pretty consistent.
Pretty consistent, yes.
Very rare that the gallon changes go up or down like significantly. It's
That's like the train fires, are they as often as they used to be, or?
The train fires?
Train.
Train fires.
On the
There's
tracks?
more train fires for some reason this year, but the train's going more this year.
Right, it is.
Right.
The train's going more
And
this
it's
year.
moving.
And it is, and yeah, if they got a van or something.
Do we get anything reimbursed from
No,
CSX or anything?
no.
question on the equipment maintenance, 0030, went from 38,000 down to 7,100. That just replace a lot of equipment or
What's the,
0030? 32 to 7100.
Page 54.
Yeah.
But that's it, that's the equipment and maintenance for the trucks and all that is on the next, on 56. Discipline and maintenance is the small equipment.
So is that just because?
That's like the defibrillators, the jaws of life, the
Just it went down so much, is that just because it's been replaced or?
it's been replaced, yes.
That Jaws of Life, that's gonna be one of those battery units.
The jaws of life, yeah, and if you go back on the page, oh,
55.
55 is they'll do the battery operated jaws of life. The jaws of life we have right now is over 25 years old and the other one's 35 years old. And it's can't get past 4 and it's leaking.
I guess my question is this enough? Like, is this, is what you need to replace?
It is enough, yes. It's enough. We've already got some estimates out there.
I guess my other, I don't plug it anywhere, but how did the project work out with redoing the data, everything at
The floor,
all the new phone lines? People,
Oh,
the
yeah,
phone line,
that's-
it's all good.
We
Everything's
stopped
working
having
great.
issues.
Yeah, it's all good.
I haven't had to go down there in months.
No,
Striker equipment lease, is that, nothing this year?
nothing this year unless we do buy an ambulance. This because if we do buy an ambulance at the end, then we'll have another lease. Or at least another ambulance. So both our ambulances right now have pretty near 100,000 miles on them. And we only have the 2, so it really limits us to transfers. So we are in need of a third ambulance. And we have to take one of these, but a third to do transfers. And that's on the
Capital.
We make money on the transfers,
That's where the money is in transfers, yes. But we only go from Penobscot Valley Hospital, that's our transfers. We don't go to Fort Kent, take patients to Portland or any of that stuff. We just worry about our own.
You can lose money doing transfers, but it depends on how you manage it. Since you only get paid for loaded miles, right? If you drive from here to Waterville, pick up grandma,
Yeah.
you take her to Portland, you get paid Waterville to Portland. Portland back to here, zero.
Do we service any of the towns on the ambulance that we do from the fire?
Do we do what now?
Service the local towns like you mentioned Chester and any of those towns, do we service those with the ambulance?
Yes.
We don't have any that we're doing fire only for.
No. So Chester, we do fire and ambulance, just like we do for town of Lincoln. And when we do fire and ambulance, just like we do for town of Lincoln.
And that's down to 300,000.
Yes.
And each one of those is 300,000 or 300,000?
No, the total is something just under 300,000.
Total between the 2.
For the 2, it's a total.
Yes.
They're paying like 148, 150. Okay.
Will that price go up if our labor goes up after we strike the deal with the unions?
I think that's a,
That's one of the
Yes.
factors in the formula, so probably it will, yes.
Those formulas all go to the council.
I think you can understand the following idea. The towns that we contract to for this, all universally across the board, with no exceptions, say we're charging them too much. The group that sits in here says we're not charging them enough. Somewhere in between. I don't know if this is total happiness anyway, but
Well, usually you find out when they say, well, what are we do because there's other town offers for that price. Then you know you've reached the right mark. But until you do that, it's really what can you offer versus where they're going to get it from someplace else. And that's what you have to measure and come up with. Right. So you feel like you've got a equitable price that fits us as well as them.
Do I feel we do? Yes.
You don't think we could go higher?
Oh, I think it's gonna be a point, if you go higher, and they're gonna go with somebody else, we're gonna lose those revenues.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Who would they go with and
Well,
do we know what that?
Chester could go with Howland, Wynn can go with Lee. Mattawamkeag at the moment, I think is seriously considering going with Lee. They have alternatives.
Do we know what those alternatives are? We just don't know, right?
The league's not a.
We don't really know.
No,
They're a part-time
that's correct,
firefighter.
that's correct,
Holland have about 20-minute response time.
that's correct.
Because in those cases, again, I'm just saying, well, leave, go with someone else, then there's no, we have mutual aid with league, we don't because they're not. At least when I was, ones that were equivalent to. Mutual aid, so.
Yeah, well, we called a lot of things mutual aid, but there was nothing mutual about it. We had a mutual aid agreement with Wynn, who had nobody, no personnel, no equipment. So what's mutual about it? They can't give us anything. So we got to the point that we are in these formulas whereby they pay. And I'm very sure, I have heard from Wynn quite recently that they have gotten a lower price from Lee, but for the moment, they think we are a higher quality service. So, okay, that's good. But this is the same thing you are for the budget, and this is true with everything. We want to pay less for everything. We just want to pay less.
But does Lee have 5 people on staff?
No. No,
Because that's what, you know, when that one case, we didn't have fire department.
Well, Mattawamkeag said to them that they had a mutual aid contract with us. As a result, we would go to Wynn by serving Mattawamkeag. However, we got that shut off.
Man. Not really equal, so.
that's right.
And again, nobody voluntarily wants to pay.
Is there any volunteers, or is that because they want to training?
Do we have also, right now, to be honest with you, we've got Chris Reed, who's on our call department, and we got Bobby Bean, who's on our call department. And we've got 5 new call members that are coming on right now. So that's one of the reasons for the new turnout year as well, because we are starting to get an active. We've had 2 people go to an in-house academy. And so we are starting to build a call department back up again. So, and it was gone away for a while, and we're starting to get them back.
It's gotta be tough with the amount of training.
It is, and that is tough, but these guys seem to be pretty dedicated right now, so.
This is truly making a distinction, is a paid on-call division. So they are paid. True volunteers pretty much don't exist anymore, and state law has pretty well made that be the case. And I'm sure in some town somewhere, they've still got some volunteers, but there are darn few and very few who actually keep up with the training. And just when you think the state isn't watching us, some town gets fined heavily for volunteer firefighters who haven't done the training, haven't kept up with the training, et cetera, and they get in serious trouble with the state.
Another thing, if main labor walks in and asks for inspection sheets, I mean, our gear's inspected, the truck's inspected, they're tested, If the pump tests are done yearly, everything, it's compressors, breathing apparatus, everything's tested and everything's, somebody gets hurt, the paperwork's there to prove that the budget is taking care of us, so everything's up.
That was the other thing when I went the other day and was doing the tours. Some of them guys only have one set of turnout gear. It was back fire, they get it right here.
What's the cost of your when you set a turnover?
Right now, when 5 years ago, when you bought me 20 sets, it was $3,000 a set. That was boots, pants, coat, helmet, hood, gloves, the works. And now it's $4,000 just for the coat and the pants. 'Cause- Yeah, that's what they're
And the
doing.
legislature and the federal government will continue making more rules.
And, you go to a oil spill for whatever reason and you get splattered, even though you try to keep yourself away from it, you can ruin a set of gear awful easy.
Oh, with the amount of fires that you have.
Yeah, that's right.
I would say put it in here turnout gear maybe not for the on-call.
No, they've got to have a set of turnout gear
They have
too.
their own one set, but I would
Yeah,
say
yeah, so,
for
yeah.
full-time employees, they should have two.
Should have two. I think it's a safety issue, someone use the holes and stuff. So it's,
It's about 40,000.
No, that's $40,000 is for 10 sets. That's all. The 40,000 is for 10 sets, not 20. Yeah, that's only for 10 sets.
So would you like him to
I would, yeah.
do 80,000 instead of 40?
So that would get, now is that, so I guess my question is that, what the amount in here, is that replacing ones that need to be replaced?
Well, this is replace the ones, but the ones that are written out could go as a second set. To get by. I mean, they don't pass, but they could get by.
Would it pass an inspection if there was do those get inspected?
Probably not. No, they would not pass inspection. The state, if they could not go to the fire academy with their gear. All right, the gear that's worn, they wouldn't even be allowed in the fire academy to train with the others because they're inspected before they train. So no, the gear, a lot of gear they have right now, those 5 years old, would not pass. Would not pass.
So I guess, maybe you know better, is there like should we be having I'd say like capital, but a reserve item of, and is it 3 years, 5 years, like on the time frame on when it should
But
be?
the last 20 sets we bought was 5 years ago, and they're getting bad already.
So, but wait. How many, you need 20 sets?
20 sets.
20 sets?
20, well, if you call members, you're talking close to 30 sets, but 20 sets, would take care of us.
How many suits do you have that won't pass inspection right now today?
Right now, probably there's 4.
Four
Four,
people
yeah.
that don't have safe suits.
That's good have suits.
So last time you did this was done as a lease.
Yes,
Is that what you would like,
I would say I'd be the best bet, yeah.
instead of doing it as reserves? That way he can get it, all the sets immediately and we just pay annually on it.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be my opinion is everybody should have a new set and then they should have 2 fully functional sets. So if you have some that can still be used, maybe you don't have to put those up at least the next year to replace them, but if you gotta replace everything, then I would say.
I think
Yeah.
it is, the ones in the years compromised, that needs to be addressed. If it's cheaper today to fix it, and perhaps we can model that.
See, what happened the last time we had got the lease, and there's gonna be a way around this.
Yeah,
There's gonna be a way around it, is we had 20 sets, but we had to order those 20 sets. It'd be nice to, like you said, that I could order 10 sets in January. If I didn't need 3 more sets until 6 months after, when new people come, so I said we can order then. Like, when we get the grants, we gotta spend the money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It'd be nice if the money was in an account, so we could only have it, when we needed gear, we could buy it. Instead of have to buy it all once, because what happened at the end last time is we bought several sets of extra large, or just the sizes that we needed the most of, because we had to spend it. Where if we could just have the money so we could just spend it as we need it, I think it's a better, so that way you get them size. Everyone has to be sized for the year. You just don't get it off the shelf. There's the long arms, the long legs, or whatever it could be. They need to be sized. And when they go to fire academy and they go to outside training, they give us inspected at that time. And if, you know, if the cuffs aren't long enough or whatever, they're not allowed to be involved.
I mean, I'd almost say at least one new set for everybody, and then, again, money reserved to replace.
I think you could pull up if they would cost, just to, you want to replace those. And
I mean, I would make sure it get more than with the past, and yeah, everyone needs at least 2 sets. Equal sets, in my opinion. And you should have at least a little bit in reserve for, I mean, I'm sure the.
I would think we would buy it, yes.
But, I mean, ideally, you have a reserve account for that purpose, because you said for $4,000.
Right now, for what's recommended is $4,000 for pants and coat, because then you got your boots, you got your helmets, you got your hoods, but I would have that money in the budget. So,
At least have enough.
get by for 2 or 3 people, yes.
Yeah.
Enough to buy a couple helmets a year or whatever we need.
under overtime, can you explain, I'm not familiar with that hours. The vacation hours, you got 68 hours, 26 hours, and 84 hours. That's page 51.
On page 51, you ask him about the overtime,
Yeah, it says the hours vacation, 68 hours vacation, 26 hours vacation, 84.
because that's how many hours that, like, someone with 15 years would have more hours than someone with 2 years experience. So someone's to say they would have the 68 hours of vacation. You see what I'm
The
saying?
contract makes a
Contract,
difference as to
yeah.
how long they have been with us.
Mhm.
So they would get so altogether, those people would have 68 hours of vacation time, where some would only have 26.
A new guy, his first year, he's gonna get 84 hours.
First year, they get 84 hours.
Yeah, it's just 2 weeks for them. And this is the amount of money he needs to cover those people that have 2 weeks of vacation are out. Because you're gonna have to bring a crew in that's gonna be paid overtime for that time frame while this person's out.
Mhm. It just, the cost per hour is like 415 for 68 hours, 1,019 per hour for 26 hours, and 458 per hour for the 84. I'm not sure how these numbers like that, but
I think based on, so if you see 68 hours vacation or 28, that's the amount of cost for everyone that has.
Yeah, everyone has those hours.
But there's 5 employees that have 68 hours vacation. That's the cost of those 5 employees to take their vacations.
okay. So that's not total hours.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not per person. It's down divided by the amount of 68 hours vacation.
You've done the calculation on the total hours, right?
That's right.
You just haven't listed how many people are 68, how many 26.
That's correct. Again,
It used to be, 2 years ago, it used to be there. So they manually calculated the hours and multiplied it by
That's
wages.
it.
It used to be in,
I think it's gonna be more on the computer.
I assume it must be the same hourly
Yeah.
rate that you get.
That's right, the same.
Yeah.
I'm assuming less is like the lieutenant and the captain for each shift.
Yes. Yes. And the captains primarily, they run the shifts. The captains run the shift. We do not have an assistant chief. And the captains, are the leaders of each shift.
And you said you have a capital item too?
No, well, capital items would be the jaws of life and the turnout gear. And in the capital, we have,
Big sign.
no, and when we put the furnace is also in the regular budget.
It's in the regular
Yeah,
budget.
and I have a furnace. Our furnace has blowing water, blowing steam, and I included that in
It's
the
in
public safety building budget.
We got through the winter with that boiler, but early in the winter, we were simply saying to ourselves, we're gonna count the days, because it was down to that. But we got through, so that's nice.
So in the public safety building budget, we have $42,000.
Let's start with show the ambulances.
With the what?
Ambulance lease in your actual capital.
That was, it said 200,000, is that the entire cost, or is that just yearly?
That would be yearly, if we pay over 2 years. I'm saying it's about $360,000 now for an ambulance. Well, 5 years ago, when we bought the other two ambulances, they're like $180,000 a piece. And that's how much they've gone up.
They doubled.
They doubled.
We started.
That's right. Now, we will go to bid, so it's possible we get it cheaper, but.
Well, that's fully equipped plus. And
Now, that, we've got most of the equipment, if we take it as a third ambulance, we're going to buy a few things, but not many, because we had 3 ambulances at one time. So we've got the stretcher, we've got the monitor, so we've got a lot of the equipment. So that would be more or less just a basic ambulance when we go to bid.
How about staffing for that? Do we have to hire more people?
No, we'd still have 5 people. We'd have 5 people, and we'd have people on call. So we wouldn't hire any more full-time, but we might use some call people to come in and do the transfer.
You said we had 3 at one point, did it
We
just?
did have 3 at one time, and one we lost the motor in. We lost the motor, and, yeah, we bought a second-hand, and it didn't work out well at all.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't say everything, but most of it, but.
Yeah.
Work out. One more big point of new or.
Yeah. Well, that's like the fire truck, we buy them 20 years old, but we have a good maintenance record to keep them up, and that's what's good.
Well, the two we bought that were older, we knew about them
And they're nice.
before we committed to it.
That's correct. That's they're in good shape, and we have, the maintenance is done on them, so.
We avoided spending $1 million on a ladder truck. I forgot what we did pay for that, 100,
120 something.
and it's working well for us. Tank truck was a similar situation. We could have easily spent 400,000 on that, maybe more. What did we finally spend? 3? But you have to shop hard for that.
I'm gonna assume going forward too, that everyone trying to increase the life and how long it's been. May not find things like that
No,
going forward.
So how many year lease would that be?
well, that would be up to the board, how much they wanted to spend a year. The last time we took 5-year lease. Last time we took a 5-year lease, and that's when we bought the 2.
You said it'd be about 360,000.
No, that's a $300,000.
So it would be, if we did, again, it's not up to us to approve the lease, but the council, they want to do 5 years, 360. Just divide it over 5, and that's what we put.
Pretty much, yeah.
So
Less than
200,
100. Right around 100.
that's 2-year lease or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring, $200 a year, $200,000 a year, but last time we went 5 years, so,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what it is.
yeah.
So, and total cost is 360.
Yes.
Just divide that out by the number of years you want to run the lease.
What about the other two of those?
They get, the other two are in good shape. They get, I think one, we looked today was 94,000. When you was, Tom, when you was at, what, 94, 98? Yeah, 94, 98,000.
What do you typically see for, a while? 50,000? And once you get past
When,
that, you
Yeah.
have to be pushing in.
with the diesels, well, we couldn't buy the diesels, it's like when we bought these two. But we was getting 150 to 200,000 miles out of them. We're getting really good luck with these ones here, because we have very, very, very little trouble with these animals. These are gas jobs, they got very little trouble. They really work out real well.
What do we get them? Do we get them 0 miles?
We got them at 0 miles, yeah.
So for 5 years?
Yeah. Yep, we got them through Thornton's.
So essentially, I will map, it would be, if for a 5-year lease, you're always gonna have at least a year going forward. on it.
Yes. Yes. So I'm thinking 2 years will be probably at least another one.
Fourth one or the first one?
No, we'll get rid of one. I don't believe you'll ever need 4 unless you really grow big. No, I think three, and that's the trouble is right now with 3 ambulances, it's gonna be parked outside, the transfer ambulance. So when the ambulance goes out, then we bring the 3rd one in, because we have no way to put it on the cover.
Howland has what more?
Oh, yeah, I don't know how many Howland have. They have 5, 6, but they do a lot of.
I think they've got 5, but they're doing tons of transfers and many miles that are unpaid.
So if our 2 ambulances are all busy and we need a 3rd one, now what we do is call Howland.
That's right. That's right. And this and vice
They bill
versa.
us for it, or-
No, they don't bill us, it's mutual aid. We just bill the patient, and when they take them up here, they just bill the patient. It works, we got a really good mutual aid with Howland. Howland and Lincoln are working really well together.
Is it more effective to keep the 2 and use Howland for the 3rd one?
I don't think so. I think we're better off to have a 3 and there are times when Howland's busy as well, and we're covering for them, so.
Again, if we're paying so much in EMS, and fire EMS, down the taxpayers paying it, then the one, if we have 2, if we're also providing services, so we have 2 of ours out, do we want to have to wait for how long to come up
That's
to
correct.
it for an
That's
rest of
correct.
the year, or would we prefer having our own ambulance on somebody who was
That's okay.
1 street over, 2 streets over from the fire department? That's like, a minute versus, oh, they're gonna wait 45 minutes.
I was just telling the town manager that the crew yesterday had a structure fire, but it actually was a fire in a garage. And 2 minutes and less than 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 40 some seconds. They, from the time they responded, the time they got there, the fire was out. And that's in close, close vicinity, but still, fully geared, fully ready to go. They put the fire out.
Well, I think what Phil's saying is it's a shame to have our 2 units up and down a water tank, and then all of a sudden,
That's right.
like you say, we get a response, we need to come from Holland, and it's a 20-minute bus ride to get here.
We like to use our own people because we've trained our own people and
You know each other.
know each other and they know what they got when they leave the station.
We had an ambulance run, I'll say 3 weeks ago, you can correct me a little bit, but it went to a suburb of Boston with a person from here, and went to one of those hospitals down there. With only 2 ambulances, we're effectively down to 1 for almost half a day.
And that was one of our patients, a Lincoln patient.
Be more than half a day here in Boston,
No, that's right. It was a whole day.
Well,
Yeah.
by the time you get back.
yeah,
I think of all the other costs. Like, one, you said it'd be outside. Is there anything we could do to, like, temporary structure with something where it's.
We
outdoor or
talked,
something?
we talked a year or so ago, a lean-to on the end of the building would be nice. It wouldn't have to really be heated, but a place to back it under and get out of the weather. and the new pickup, both could fit under the other.
I would. Anything you keep out of weather.
But we are, the council's been generous to try to put money into our building. We've been making good strides to get the old building back up. We've got new windows now and a lot of changes there. So the building is coming back.
The building was in much poorer condition than most people realized. And it was popular here to say that other than the public works garage, the public safety building was the newest building the town owned. Well, that may be, but the condition it was in, it was nothing faintly like new. And the fact is, some of the foundation, some of the floor was from the preceding building. So it was pretty rough. Les has done a great job in the last few years bringing that building back piece by piece. So,
But the floor last year, that money went into phones and different things. We threw money for the floor, but it ended up going into other parts of the building. But the floor, the last time we had someone come look at the floor, it was just, we left. We're gonna put a coat of paint on it and try to do something with it.
The floor's still not done?
No, the floor's not done.
Is that in the budget?
If the last person we had come up and give us an estimate wants to rip the whole floor off and put a new floor down, we don't want to do that. That's how bad shape the floor is in.
I mean, if you get multiple quotes, and I'll say that there's a floor.
well, we had one that was gonna do, I'm not gonna say the right thing
Yeah.
here, but a ceramic something.
An epoxy.
Epoxy. But at the last minute, we couldn't live with them because they wanted us to buy all the materials up front. It was kind of like they weren't really in business. So we didn't get that done, and I don't know where we're gonna go this next year.
We had an epoxy outfit out of Ellsworth come up. And when they come up, they said the only way they would even think about come up and warranty it is we ripped all the cement up, replace the cement, and then, yeah. I mean, you're talking $500,000, something was worth it. No way.
Is it salt damage that there's?
It's just, the buildings, there's two buildings together and there's just a lot of breaks and cracks and.
And put it in perspective, when I got on council in 2016, they had it's done in 10 years, so I'm talking about $500, $600 a maintenance a year. Like,
Yeah.
they weren't putting any money into any of the stuff that we had, so you figure we spent all the money to redo the building in like 1993, and then they just do maintenance.
And there's no exhaust system in the building, which it really needs an exhaust system. So when it starts trucks up, it fills the building full of smoke and
That's a safety issue.
that's a safety issue. That's correct. That's a safety issue.
Do you have that in?
No. I mean, you're talking, if I come in with a budget, then everything that's wrong with the building, it would be, you'd run me out of here.
But he's done pretty well with it.
So you start the construction.
Yeah, it's not the trucks, but May labor and all do not like that. They want an exhaust pit in the building.
Plus, I've seen them take on garage floor like that, where it's stove up, chip out the really rough spots, and do like a 2-inch overlay on the whole thing. I'm curious if maybe that might be an option.
Sure, we take recommendations, to them. Yeah.
They do a special mix for it,
Yeah.
it's smaller stone, and I've seen them do it. Just curious, if that'd be a lot cheaper option, and get it done.
Buy it some time anyway.
That's not in the budget.
No,
Another year.
the biggest thing with that would be if you had the plan to your overhead doors to set the high wire up to 2 inches. But
You have clearance issues with that,
No.
14-foot doors.
So on to the public safety. The furnace, this furnace.
Yes.
We're gonna move that in capital.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
And how much was your furnace, the 48 or the 42.8?
42, yeah, well, that was a quote, 42, 23.
That's going natural gas.
Let's go natural gas. And that's just the boiler. Now, I don't know what other problems they'd run into, but that's the boiler.
You have an underground storage tank for oil,
No, it's in the cellar. We have two.
so if you go natural gas, the tank comes out too.
Those can go away, yes.
Yeah, he's gonna do the whole thing, twice doing that, yeah. He's the same one that did the library.
I see there's the air compressor as well.
No, I'd say it's not there.
That's,
We put the air compressor in this year, so I don't think it's,
The 50,000 going away.
No, the
Oh, 50,000, I don't
50,000.
think so.
no, not the whole 50,000, no.
I'm confused. So the air compressors, the air
Yes.
is
The
the
air
address?
The air
Cross that out,
compressor, that's already, that's
so
gone.
50,000 would be
Oh,
for the floor, you said?
which is, yes.
Yeah, $6,000 would be for the floor and other work that needs to be done. That was just to put into the building.
How many square feet is the floor? What's the dimensions?
It's 4 bays.
15 or 12-foot bays.
I think 12.
12, I think 12, yeah.
Was that in there, Russ, we talked about the other day, waterproofing something on the walls, probably?
Yes, that'd be the $50,000 that we put in.
It's about 30 feet deep. When you
Yeah.
drive in,
Yes.
Siding go out the bottom of the walls, and wash the hoses and stuff inside. the
That's
spot.
150 feet.
50 feet, so 2,500 square feet.
I'd have to measure for it.
So I guess, it was just a thought. That's, would it make sense, would this be something for like a large capital expense, but tear down those bays and just redo everything? Is that an option? Is that
The floor, you mean?
like the whole bay out, tear the floor, redo it?
Roof and all?
Yeah,
They have time to talk things about.
the whole thing, like, I mean, just.
The price would go up substantially.
I mean, is that, is that the way the building's built, or would you be the?
Well, then the question I raise is, do you want to put that much money into that building with a substantial part of it still being as old as it is?
Right. Because part of it's on the foundation, part of it is not. And then you got the cement slab, some's on just pillars, then you got a foundation, then you got just a slab under the main part of the building. And
The goal is always to put the town office and fire, police in one building, but
We're not
I
there yet.
don't see that happening.
Well, if we get Form Energy paying their lease and we get Biofine paying theirs, I think then we should be talking about that, but we're not there.
Because there was a roof issue there too, right? So,
the roof, we patched the roof this year and we fixed it, it's not leaking now. And the roof looks good from the outside, but if you walk on the roof, we just had an antenna issue on the roof. And when you walk across the roof, it's pretty soft, pretty soft.
so I mean, that's what I'm hearing, almost, people with the patchwork that we've done, it's, you're talking almost built a whole building anyway, having to.
We've made a big stab at it, yes.
But then put the roof, floor,
Mm-hmm.
whatever else. you can talk about.
We're building a new fire station right this minute in Hancock, Maine. It's too small for us. The price is 1.7. Yeah.
least.
We want to explore this issue.
I mean, I don't think you know what it's gonna cost, but I would 100% counsel that. The roof is spongy, then you don't want to be in there when it collapses.
The metal roof glass,
No, it's a shingle roof. But they watch across it to fix the antenna. The guy was a heavy boy, but you could see it.
right?
He's,
What is it, like a 512 pitch?
I would say
You said it's shingle.
shingles, yeah. You can walk right up it.
2x6 trusses and probably halfway plywood, something like that.
I would say. I have no idea when it was built.
Can you go up in the attic and look up underneath?
You can.
You see any?
I haven't,
up there?
because it's a panel, take panels out like that and go out. So I didn't know that.
Or if you get somewhere like Wade or something to go up and take a look at it. You can assess, just like that, is anything. May not even be able to take a snow.
But like, if it's spongy to walk on it, there's one good storm and they don't have park permit anymore.
And how old isn't the building like 25 years old or something?
More than that.
1970 something.
So you really use 2x6 construction? If it was built in 70?
The trusses. Oh, sorry, 2x6.
Okay.
It depends on if it's a truss or if it's a single span.
Right.
I'm guessing it's probably a truss.
I can get any questions you have, I can get the answers for you. So,
They could build new and then.
But redoing the roof, especially if it's spongy like that, you could rip off the shingles, put in a layer of plywood, if the truss is in good shape. We should, 4-foot metal roof. Depends on what the walls are, because it's all masonry walls, right?
Block.
Yeah, masonry walls. With brick exterior, right?
I think the
In
back
places.
is, yeah, I think the back's just metal. Back of the building's metal, the front of it's brick, fascia anyway.
Right.
But that's it. I think it's mostly a metal building,
But it's rock wall with a brick fascia.
I believe so.
Well, that might be a good idea. We take a look at it and see. We can start getting more shingles and realize we gotta do all the trusses or doubling it.
You don't look at the roof and know what's there. There's no sense in putting money in the floor. You gotta scramble and do something else.
Yeah, you should almost put that all the floor and then roof glass and
Right.
then floor.
I don't think the roof is anywhere near that bad a shape, but
I mean,
I'm not so sure 25 years ago when they walked on the roof, it would have been like that as well. So I don't know, to be honest with you.
So they probably just stripped the shingles and put the one right over the change of the plywood.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's been done before I got a house, like 35-year roof. So,
It was on there when I come, that's all I know.
It was on there when I came,
so
and that was 17 years ago.
figuring that you do that, they move it on.
Well,
I think you've got the right year, 92.
the structural part, if it's built properly, it's fine. It's just the shingles that have to get replaced. It's like tires, you know, replace an axle on a car, you put new rubber in it. So- But I think keeping 50,000 in there, whether you use it floors or maintenance,
The wall, so, yeah.
you know, you can make that call once you have somebody take a look at it. And I would recommend you go out and get some prices from somebody, and I think there's a lot of companies out there that will give you what they'll do is they'll grind the concrete, make a rough surface, and then a 2-inch overlay. It's probably 6,000 pound mix, very fine, and then you can seal that with epoxy coating.
We'll have to work with the floor drains in that case. We just got cleared of MMA insurance based on the grate over the floor drains because some of them were tippy and didn't hold still and there were gaps and so forth, so.
And that 2-inch overlay helped out because you could actually put a cap on, mount it to like 2 inches.
And I guess, so my question would be, besides the board, like, for other big maintenance items? there?
Those are two big ones.
Okay.
The boiler, you said. because-
The boiler has to be replaced. That has to be done. The
So there's
boiler.
three major things
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
We've got
that's
a
correct.
boiler, roof, and a floor right now. I mean,
Well, I think if you had 50 in there, that you could point it towards the floor, but if the roof takes priority, then you go to the roof. You can live with the floor, you
Mhm.
can't live with snow coming in on the roof.
That's correct.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I guess I make a recommendation of trying to get your prices up to some of these surrounding communities, because I think you've got a much better service than anybody else. And it's, it'd be too bad to not capitalize on it.
Well, I'll repeat. Chester will go to Howland. Wynn will go to Lee. And they're already complaining about what charge.
I mean, how we can charge him as much, if more and more.
I think Colin's gonna charge you more now.
And
Yes.
then, again, if Chargers builds on fire or tree line,
Mhm.
and are they gonna wanna wait 25 minutes for a response? Or,
Well, no one knows what they want to do. Assuming that grandma walked around well today, then we don't want to spend money to transfer her anywhere, but in 3 weeks when she's on the floor, then we want to spend money. You can't ever predict these things. But we know that Wynn was negotiating with Lee, and they flat out said to us, you're the higher of the two prices. For the moment, because they think we provide a better service, which I believe we do, they've gone with us. But the way the agreement is, with 60 days' notice, they can leave us.
or how we're doing it, that's my opinion.
Is that all they have to give you, 60-day notice?
Yeah, there was a time there was no notice required. And if they go somewhere else and we lose the 100 plus that Wynn is giving us, we're still gonna be paying the same cost. So it's not gonna save us any money. It's just gonna cost Lincoln taxpayers more.
How are they paying you, once a month?
We have
Wynn
offered
pays
them
quarterly.
quarterly.
Chester pays biannually. So every 6 months, Chester will pay us.
So we're financing it.
Well, effectively, yes.
Technically, but how often do you pay your taxes in Lincoln? Biannually.
No, I'm not talking about downtown.
Right.
When you rent a
Yeah.
place, do you just pay the monthly rent, or do you give them a month in advance?
We've always done Chester biannually. We would have to redo the contract, I would still, if we wanted to pay it, have them to pay us monthly.
All I'm saying is you're financing it, I think that's pretty bad.
But if it's now cost, then don't want that to pay up front, then I'm gonna write them a check down. But, yeah, no, I think if the contract's already, basically, you gotta be kind of way to reflect, like, again, you're getting a, for instance, $1,000 ambulance piece. You have to pay the attendance on
Well, the
that.
formula that is the underlying money for both fire and EMS takes those things into account. If we had it here in front of us, I don't think we do, but the trucks are in it, the ambulances are in it, so they are paying money for those. And if we get a third ambulance, they'll pay a bit more for that.
And Chester's on, you said it's a per capita, like, so I'm assuming,
Well, you have this formula of the various factors that comes down to a number. Then you will recall, we used to be at 75%, now we're at 80% of what the math works out to be. So it's 80%, and then that number is multiplied.
it's supposed to go from, started at like 50% or 60%.
I don't know
That's
what
supposed to
it's
be at
at.
100% for everybody.
Well, we're not, we're at 80. And so then their population, and there's a little debate over population because the US Census here the last time done was pretty poor, so we're using MMA's numbers. Nobody seems to be debating those, at least for now. So that's good.
So
It's only been 2 years since Chester did their last exercise of could they set up their own volunteer fire department.
Oh, no, it was, 6 months ago. Their selectmen were calling me,
Oh, really, yeah.
debating whether they were paying too much for what they're getting.
We're only charging 80% of what we think is costing it.
So,
That
The
really-
formula they work out, then the one,
Yeah.
say, let's say, the formula says it's $100,000, but they owe us, you want to charge them $8,000.
to give it a sense of discount.
That factor has been in that contractual arrangement, as long as I know about, quite some time before that. And again, as Mr. Edwards said, the factor has gone up. It used to be lower, but it's gone up. In the end, it really doesn't matter to these towns what's in, what makes this number. All they really care about is can they pay less? That's all they care about. That's 100% of the question.
But they're asking the right question.
Well, if you were there with them, you'd say so, yes.
I think my recommendation to the council would be to charge everything at 100%. Not 80%.
I guess that's.
If that makes people happier to see that formula that way, that's fine. But I will then recommend that the per capita number drop, because I really believe we've got them just about at everything they're gonna pay. And again, do you want the taxpayers of this town to pay another 300,000?
But if it's if they're getting that 20% discount, doesn't that mean the Lincoln residents are paying the 20%, covering the extra?
If you
So
do,
we're paying more money so that they can have service.
to a degree, there are some things we do in Lincoln that we do not do in those other places. We do, I think, pathetically little, hope we get to more, but we do some fire inspection here of commercial facilities and so forth. That doesn't happen in Chester or Wynn. When we go to the schools, which is not tremendously frequently, but we do go and have days with the students. That's done here. It's not done in either of those two. Now, as it turns out, the Chester children get the same thing because they're in this school system. But we simply are not. And there's a person who I won't name right now who's been on the council for quite some number of years. And he says that the discounted rate is fair because we are substantially further from any place in Chester or Wynn to respond to than we are in Lincoln. We are physically here. You all can go debate that however you'd like.
I guess, getting to your point, is if you've done the math and it's come up with the formulas that says this is their fair share, and we charge them only 80% of it, then the town of Lincoln picking up that 20%.
Well, we can turn that into 100% if that's what the council says to do. But I will be telling the council at that hour, we cannot maintain the dollar amounts that we're showing at this time for fire and for EMS, because two of them are gonna leave. And you tell me where you wanna raise that other $300,000 from.
We've already heard that their only other option is if they want equivalent services or how much more expensive. So,
Well, maybe if you read the newspaper, that fire district down there has many questions regarding how they fund it and how they pay it and how they're, well, I guess that's enough. But
because again, as a taxpayer, more power to them. Someone wants to go sign with Lee and all their homes burned down, then sign with Lee. And then when they come back, then I would charge them double what we charged before. And
yeah.
you're gonna pay.
You remember we played that game with Wynn a few years ago when we said, no, you do not have mutual aid with us because you don't have anything to send us. And we said that for a few months, and then we said, okay, that's it. We're done coming and responding to your fires. And they said, well, we don't want to pay, so okay. And I talked with a person who was on their select board there, who I won't throw under the bus at the moment with a name, but very clearly there. And that person said to me, we're going to burn down 3 or 4 houses and we're back. And that's exactly what has happened. It's exactly what has happened.
Wes, do we spend any more money because you offer the services for Wynn and Chester? Does that affect our bottom line at all? Would you spend the same money whether we help them or not?
Yes.
We'd save a little diesel fuel.
Do you feel, Russ, that you've adjusted the ambulance rates, that we are at least breaking even by doing this again?
I think we're making money for those towns. Yes, we are. And if main care would ever come around where they're supposed to be, we would generate a lot more revenue from there. So as a representative, senators, they get to start taking care of us and the nursing homes, you know? They're not paying their share.
I do think it's good that you're now charging people for the assistance in the floor.
Yeah.
Because, someone just recently told me how their sister is one of the frequent flyers to the floor. And, when the ambulance or fire department, whoever comes together, oh, just come on in, we're just friends, we're like family, like it's a joke. Like she expects them to come. And I told the family, I said, well, hang on, that's being changed,
Yeah.
it's gonna cost them
Yeah.
money every time they show up. Because to her, it was just like a good
Yes.
social gathering.
That's right.
We're doing
on
lift
the floor.
assist.
And she's huge too, she's big, which means
Yeah.
she's endangering your staff,
Yes.
We're doing lift assist in Lincoln
right?
at no charge.
Except for the
We're
nursing
charging the
home,
facilities.
the facility.
But if the person goes down to your house and we come and do a lift assist, there is no bill.
Why?
Because that's what the
That's what
council
you're
agreed
paying.
to. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
paying your
yeah.
taxes for that.
I know on the council,
Yes.
we're okay with services here for our residents. We're not okay with paying services for facilities that are already getting paid to do that service for outlying towns that aren't really paying it.
I think there should be a limit on how many times you go to someone's house too. 'Cause if you
And they are
go to
doing that in
someone's house 3
some-
times, it's kind of like, okay, this isn't a safe situation. Because then it's adult abuse, because you're not protecting them, because they land on the floor and they hit their head on the way down.
And there are towns that charge after 3 times or 4 times, and they start charging.
I would think so. I mean, this person, she looks at it as a social event.
But is there a way to decide to charge them directly? Can't charge me here.
You can't have maybe be charging them themselves. Yeah. Insurance is not gonna pay.
So then would you no longer answer a call from that?
No. We
Couldn't
couldn't do that.
pay? So
Couldn't do that.
so if they don't have the money to pay, then
That's right, that's right.
We've played that,
Adult protective services, because they shouldn't be on the floor every other day.
we've played that, how tough can we be? And as I just told you about wind and fire, what we went through. Went through the same thing 2 months ago with an EMS call, and we were one of 8 agencies that wouldn't go because none of them had an agreement there.
Right.
And there were many people who came here to complain about how can you be so cruel, how can you be so miserable, and blah, 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 and all that. But they came down, that plantation, and said, how much? And we told them, and they were in here 48 hours later with a check, and we are now covering them for EMS. It's messy to say to some town, nah, we're not helping you anymore. But we've been tough enough to do it, so I say, give Les some credit for that.
I'm saying when people say, why do you need the full, it's like, oh, they don't budget that. But that's because they're, so,
Right.
somewhere.
And there are, if we go to a coded town, we go to a coded town and spend, with drugs and equipment and defibrillator repairs, probably close to $1,000, we can't go for that either. And the insurance company and Medicare, because we do not transport the patient.
Les, has there ever been talk about doing fire in their districts?
Well, yeah, that's one hour game. Les and I went to the first meetings there.
What happened to it? Talks about-
I said to them, oh, no, they kept going, they created their district.
I'm talking, all these towns we talked about coming together.
Well, the ones south of us are in the Howland district. And I said to them when we met with them, I didn't think there was anything that was gonna come of it that was gonna benefit Lincoln. But if something did, we'd be back and willing to discuss it. They didn't bother to call us to say, we got something for you.
And I was at one of the meetings here. And that was the big thing was all that was passed on payment. One district is they were gonna save 50-60% of what they were paying. Well, they thought that was paying 30-40% more than what they paid.
Yeah, that's right.
So if Lincoln did a district with Chester and Wynn and one else, they're costing a
And we have control of it now. If we do a district like that, we're gonna give away some of the control.
And from the state side, it's considered private entity now.
That's correct.
If the stuff goes through, there's gonna be like 30% tax or something based on that.
Oh,
That's.
Tax on EMS, yes. One of the plans for that is that while it looks like a tax on EMS, the reality is the money actually comes back to us under another name. But they haven't passed that yet either.
Anything else on the list?
If you go to assisted living buildings, they get charged. But if it's someone who wants independent retirement homes, they don't get charged.
Don't the independent retirement homes do?
They do.
They do. I mean, if you're talking,
If it's someone in their own home or like an apartment, they don't get charged.
they don't charge.
And do you have people that you frequently pick up?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
And when do you not become liable for a safety issue though? Because you're aware of the fact that this person isn't safe at home. How do you get protected that way legally?
We call the state a lot of times and let the state know what we have, and we feel that they are living unsafe,
Right?
and then DHS comes and checks on them, and
Okay.
usually says, well, they're okay. They got a sound mind.
But you're protected though.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call the state.
Because when they've been in a bathtub for 2 days or whatever.
They're living in
Right.
dog poop, cow poop, cat poop, sheep poop,
Yeah.
goat poop. We don't know. You know,
And because the state doesn't want to spend the money, they almost always go and look at those and say, oh, that's okay.
their mind, sound mind.
I reported once in they said, don't worry, they'll be dead before they get out. Yeah. Like, oh my God, I did what I was supposed to, you know.
All right, I don't think there's anything else. Thank you.
All right, well,
Thank you.
Did you?
Melissa said you want to do personnel.
Well, do you want to do personnel or do you want to do finance?
I think she wants to do personnel last.
Can we do finance? Finance and personnel?
If we have time, we'll do personnel. If not, we'll wait.
Anyone have any questions? Just refer in. I'm assuming just the wage increases of.
This from last year. This is our current.
Those are
Wage.
last year's wage increases. Then, as I always do, I'll ask the council for an increase for the non-union personnel. This year, I plan to ask for 5%. Then we'll see what the council approves. Could be anywhere from 0 to 100%, right?
How did the, I know last year, did the, it was at some percentage and then the rest
Yes.
was merit based.
Yeah.
How did
Yes.
that work out?
Reasonably well.
What's the cost of living running right now? 2.5?
I think 3.5 is more like it. But I am seeing what other municipalities in Maine are doing because pretty much everybody's in budget time right now. And what I'm seeing ranges from 2 or 3 to as much as 10.
Much as 10.
Hmm.
Where in the world are you getting 10?
Well, I don't know where they come up with the number, but
What town? Like South Portland, Cape Elizabeth?
no, it's for even further down. We're dealing with, well, Yarmouth for one, but Saco, Biddeford, Sanford, down there.
Just a big jump in group health, because the insurance is going up, or is it more employees, or?
Oh, do you want to wait for the questions about the health insurance until we get the personnel?
That's all personnel.
Oops,
Yeah.
sorry.
Maybe-
Personnel and finance.
Finance,
We're
right
on
now.
finance.
Finance.
It's the fourth tab, actually.
You mentioned you added something different on the audit fee, is that why it's up?
That is the audit fees that are currently approved by the council. We have a 4-year audit going on with this audit firm. That represents 2 years worth right there. We should be paying for at least 1 year right now, in the next month or so, and hopefully we can pay for a second one before the end. But the council has, signed a 4-year contract with this audit firm.
What's gonna happen after 4 years?
We'll go out to bid again.
What did we do before we had this audit done? I'm not familiar with it.
Same thing, we go out to bid usually it's a 3-year, but we were behind at the time, so the council did a 4-year contract with this audit firm. We're having a hard time finding an audit firm in Maine. It was at the council meeting you were talking about that.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, didn't we discuss this deja vu?
Yes. We had an auditor who was effectively a solo practitioner who did audits here, and I had seen do audits elsewhere. When an auditor comes in for 4 hours, they come back in 2 weeks for 2 more hours. That's it. That's everything. That's not an audit. I watched RKO, Runyon Kierstead do audits in Bangor and Brewer. They were in Brewer for a week, a couple of people. They were in Bangor for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 people. So I knew we weren't really getting an audit. So we went to an audit firm. We looked over a number of them, went to an audit firm in Ellsworth. It went slowly, but they were getting to know us, and we were, well, I'm not trying to be cruel, but Melissa was finding out what an actual audit is. The woman that was there after our audit was done and some other things left, I went to the school department there. So then that company, James Wadman, said, we do not have the personnel to handle you. So we had to go out and look for another. And we fished about, I fished about, Melissa did, and we didn't get anywhere. So I went to the Maine Bond Bank and I said, give me your list of approved auditors. They gave me 23 auditors. One of them was the one who does the 6-hour audit. So I knew enough not to call that one. But I called every other one of them. Almost all of them said, too busy, can't do it. RKO, which is kind of the good one in Maine, will not come north of Bangor anymore. So appears we're north of Bangor. So then we went to Barry Dunn, who is an auditor but will not do municipal audits in the state of Maine. They see complications, so they won't do it. So then either Melissa or I said to them, all right, where do we go? And they said, well, there are firms outside the state of Maine who are very good and will do this, but you've got to talk to them. So we talked to a few and ended up with, say their name,
Rhoda from Moss.
who are not in the state of Maine at all. And I missed one detail when we hired them. That is, they advertise themselves as forensic accountants. And I told them right up front, we're not looking for a forensic audit, but we're getting it.
They said, no problem, it's not a forensic audit. It is.
Yeah, it very much is. So it's been expensive and time consuming. Now, we are saying to ourselves, as we did with the entity in Ellsworth, we are saying to ourselves, once they learn us, the next one will come quicker. And they're saying that too. But I guess time will prove whether that's true or not.
So what's the town's obligation to have an audit? Are we required by law?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so the CPA that you had hired that you didn't like because you only spent 6 hours, he wasn't giving us an audit that would pass muster with the state?
The state doesn't look much, but when they do look, then they say of some, not good enough. I was well convinced this one was in that category.
He was a CPA, or she.
She, I don't know if she's actually a CPA or not.
I don't know.
I don't think she can do audits if she's not a CPA.
So I don't know that answer.
We can find if that's the case. I guess what I'm,
But she's on the list with the Maine Bond Bank, so whatever.
I know there's a wide range of people who do audits. Way up here, if you're looking for money and financing, or you got obligations that you need to report on it. If you do it just to satisfy the state, a minimum level.
And currently, we are not doing it just to satisfy the state. We are doing it to satisfy the federal government because we have these large grants. We have to do what they call a single audit. Currently, the one they're doing had the single audit for the airport grant, the big, when we did the runway shifting. The next ones are gonna have to have the single audit because of all the grants at the, mill site. So
So,
there's a lot more involved in it now.
so did our current audit pass muster with the
The
federal?
one they're doing right now, yes.
No, I'm talking about the one.
The preceding one that was done by Wadman, yes. Preceding prior to that, we weren't in the big grants and
Yeah.
we haven't been inspected. Time goes by, so I think that'll just be, time goes by.
Okay, so the 6-hour guy was before the EPA grant.
Yes.
Correct. Well before.
Just as history, being on the council always had a thing of the cheapest audit.
Right. And
Depends on what you need the audit for too. I mean, if you're just trying to make sure that you dot all the i's and cross all the t's, that's one thing. But you've got federal regulations.
correct.
And then there's certain issues and reports that have to be provided for that.
Yeah. And that is part of this fund, is now to do those single audits, because we know we're gonna have them from now until we stop getting these grants over at the mill site.
Which we hope will not stop soon.
Yeah.
There was on the list from the main bond bank, there was one in Portland who said, oh, yes, absolutely, I'll take you. Then he began at 150,000.
For 1 year.
Yeah, for one. We didn't go there.
When I first on the council, we were spending 3,000.
Right.
Yeah, I think we were at 6, maybe. It wasn't much of anything, but that was the one that would spend 6 hours with us.
I mean, we've got a budget of $12 million. These auditors are going to do $100 million companies.
Oh.
The one we're with now is built for that, yes.
That's a different audit. I mean, the company I work for, we have 5 states doing $200 million a year. That's a complicated audit. $11 million in town, 5,000 people in, that's not a complicated audit.
Shouldn't be, though we have not had, I do not believe we've had any difficulties or malfeasance. However, the way we reported it a few years ago and the way we report it now have changed dramatically.
Accounting laws changed, are you saying?
No, the way this town accounted things has changed.
We've cleaned it up. Things were mixed in together, the tip was in the municipal budget, things like that. That has all, we're following regulations now, because Ruth does get,
General accounting principles really haven't changed that much over the years.
Right.
but they weren't being.
But if you
followed.
didn't follow them, then you weren't in a good place.
That's what the audit firms
Correct.
that we weren't getting.
I mean, it's important to do an audit to make sure the books are right, but there's many different levels of audits for various purposes. What does the town of Lincoln need for audit?
We need a, my opinion, how we can make that audit, what they're doing now.
Well, and if we're gonna continue to get these federal grants, which, just a note for anybody who doesn't know this, so we get awarded a federal grant, we don't get any money. No money follows that. We go do the thing we said we were gonna do, and if we follow enough of the rules, then the money follows. So, if we can't produce for the federal government, the FAA is a big one, if we can't produce an audit that they recognize as a sufficient audit, then they're done giving us money. That's simple.
I think that was,
I'd like to think we could have done something a little less expensive. And had I don't know what I would have done if I'd focused on the fact that these people advertise themselves as forensic auditors. But I did say to them, before we began, we don't need a forensic audit. However, I don't think they know how to do anything else.
Well, a lot of it was them learning how we did things. There was a weekly meeting that I had with them in Zoom meeting. Asking, you know, how this is done, what is this, what is that? They don't understand, you know, they had to learn how the state of Maine, they asked why our revenue sharing increased from one year to the next. Well, that's because the state decided to give
Functional
us a
legislature.
larger percentage. But they had to ask that question because they didn't know why it would have increased.
At the end of the day, you have an audit that's satisfied the government.
Correct.
And satisfied taxpayers.
It was done.
So
It was done and it was done correctly and there was nothing.
So we have a company right now that's 4-year contract,
Correct.
14,000 a year. Correct?
I don't have in there.
64,000 for the audit and
That's-
6,000 very done.
We're using Barry Dunn. I had never heard of this until 2 years ago, or only a year and a half ago. We're using Barry Dunn as a pre-audit entity. They will not do a municipal audit in Maine, but they're doing the pre-audit for us. I learned this from Mark Leonard while he was our acting police chief, because he's the town manager in Veazey, and Veazey, a third the size of Lincoln, they do a pre-audit. Barry Dunn does that, and then in their case, there was someone else for the final audit. But at any rate, I'd never heard tell of doing things that way, but it turns out that that's getting to be a common arrangement. And so we are paying Barry Dunn for the pre-audit and then paying Rhoda for the actual audit.
Do you expect once all the outstanding on this, should it still be very done, or?
I don't know that I have an opinion on that yet.
But it.
I hope not. Yeah,
Once.
yeah, I'd like that
they've been in this
idea.
firm for a couple of years and they've done all past audits. And then-
And they've shown me where to put things versus the way they've always been done. And they act as an interpreter for me as well. Because auditors speak audit speak, and Barry Dunn speaks both.
So the third auditor is my state.
Yes, they have offices, in, I think, New Jersey, West Virginia,
Tennessee.
What's the name?
Tennessee. What's that?
What's the name again?
Rhoda Moss. MOSS is the Moss. I just had a couple other small increases due to cost of things increasing. Postage. This year I'm struggling having enough for postage, so I had to increase that line item. Postage went up 8% this year after we did our budget. Plus we had a presidential election where we had to send out, almost 1,000, or it might have been just over 1,000 absentee ballots. That came out of this line item. And of course, consumables go up.
So the 15% increase in the wages must be more than just the cost of their rate. That's the-
That part of it was the 6%, and then Rick had a little bit that he could put towards,
Database.
yeah, merit base.
I thought you recommended 5%. You said 6%.
No, that's,
I'm recommending
current
5%
wages right
going
now.
forward.
So
this is our current wages, what Cindy and I are getting paid as of right now.
Mhm.
In the personnel, there is a 5% for all of the non-union as a lump sum.
when you look at the personnel budget, there'll be a 5%, what Rick's recommending, that will apply to next year's budget. So when you see, you want a budget next year, you look at the numbers, then you see 5% increase in the wages. This number from what it says last year to this year reflects what was approved
Last year.
last year by the council.
Yeah.
We with a certain percentage and then a certain percentage for merit fees. For discretionary. You don't have anything else on finance?
The revenue side of that's, where's that fall? Is that last year's revenue?
I've updated a few of them, but yes, the bulk of this is, I don't know why I didn't delete. I used to do a good job on these cover sheets. But yes, I've adjusted the vehicle excise up a little bit. We adjusted up to 1 million last year. We're on target to go just over 1 million this year, so I've increased that another 50,000. But pretty much the revenues stay steady. There's a few that will increase as cost of vehicles increases, the excise tax we collect increases. So that will be one of the ones that will increase every year.
Though the legislature at this very moment,
Every couple of years they do it.
well, I don't know, this one's gaining a little traction, whether it takes or not. They are proposing to cease collecting excise tax. And there'd be a 2-year period with no excise tax collected. So towns would lose the excise tax. And then in 2 years, based on a new formula, based on the age of the vehicle, they would begin to collect excise tax again, though at that point, the state would take the excise tax. So we would not have any. Now, I can't imagine anyone really thinks this can work because the municipalities will be in desperate condition if they lose that. But it hasn't been thrown out of the session yet. It's been there for weeks now.
So that's $1 million in revenue we should have to shift to taxes, house taxes, property taxes.
I was just trying to work my way through the numbers here. In 26, you had 734,000. Then you had budget committee anticipated, which you really don't mean that, right?
No, like I said, I don't know why I didn't delete that column or zero out that column.
So you're going from 730, last year to 734. This year you're anticipating 1,117.
What number are you looking at?
It's the first page. There's no page number on it.
Right,
The
but
summary.
I don't see 700,000.
That's why 2026, for financial.
010 financial revenue. Finance revenue.
You're saying 750,000. I'm not seeing that number on here. That's net for the department. But because these numbers aren't up here yet, that's not gonna show up. These columns should have been zeroed for right now until we actually approve the budget. This is what you need to be looking at, this number here. This column, yes,
167.
yeah, because these have not been put in yet, because your numbers have not been put in yet either, so these numbers at the bottom aren't gonna make any sense.
Get back to my question. You're anticipating what you've been in there now for 1,160.
Correct. This is why it's a draft budget. We find the errors.
Yeah, I'm also,
Anything else on finance?
Uh,
Yep.
The technical assistance from Motive Brain, 2,700 a month, are we using them that much? Or?
They are on call for us. Yeah, they are not here, every hour that we're open, but if we need them, they are available. They run our server. They make sure the server's updated. They run a backup for us every night on all of our data. It's stored in 2 different places. It's not just across the street on their server over there. They also have a server out in Wisconsin that our data is stored on as well. So it covers,
It's a good service about that.
yeah. If we hired an employee, you're not gonna get an employee for that cost.
And then
And then you
The
have
hardware.
benefits and the hardware.
benefits, hardware or files, and then, yeah.
So they get like 52,000 a year from us.
Some of this doesn't stay with them, like the email, they have to pay for that. The ransomware, they have to, buy the ransomware programs and keep it updated. So some of this cost, they're making a little bit off of that, but a lot of it's going right out the door for them as well.
Is this part of like the idea that them with the monitors and everything would change? Are they doing all of that? Or?
Yep. They maintain these cameras for us that we're using tonight. They set up the system. They set up most of the system, not the sound part.
The first one, last year, but part of the reason for all this too is something happened ransomware related, that they have liability. We don't.
Okay.
Right.
From their insurance.
And
Something
when
like that could be like $10, $20 million. They're gonna be paying about that.
And when I do our insurance renewal through MMA for our liability insurance and all of that, I have Motor Brand fill out a portion of that because they have to tell them what they're doing for us.
Move on to personnel.
So group health, Charlie, you asked about that one. So part of this increase, I have increased the Medivision deductible amount. So we have a very high deductible health insurance plan. The employee pays a portion of it, the town pays a portion of it. I believe it's 80 right now. The employee's paying 20, we're paying 80. It's a much cheaper plan. And when we switched to that several years ago, we picked up Medivision. The council voted to, offset because we went from almost a 0 deductible plan to a 2,500, 5,000 plan. Last year, I think I only put 7,000 in there to offset people's co-insurance and deductible. And we have taken a beating on that, which is why I put 50,000, because right now, this year, I have put 50,000 towards the insurance, the co-insurance, and the deductibles. This year's budget is okay on that line item because we have been without a couple of police officers for the full year. So whatever money had been set aside to pay for the insurance for those police officers is going towards that Medivision. I have to estimate for every vacancy and every employee when I do the health insurance. so we're not overrun at the end of the year. So in this formula is those 3 or 4 vacant positions at the police department right now.
As happens annually at this time, or just a touch earlier, but pretty much this time, there is a town and city managers website, and the discussion on it breaks out into, what are you paying for health insurance? And that conversation has been going on for a bit, and pretty much what everybody reports back is, I went here, I went there, I went to the other place, and they pretty much all stick with MMA when it's over. So, there it is.
Unless the town is really changing where they're going high deductible, higher than now, and basically saying we're not covering anything.
Yeah,
Then you
and the
have to
problem with that is you've got the unions.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's the only way you're gonna save it.
I am looking at through MMA, because we have paid $50,000 in deductibles this year. I had them send me a census, which I just got last week. So I'm gonna look it over and see if we could juggle things a little bit, and go to a lower deductible plan and still have the same costs that the town's paying.
You're saying go to a lower deductible plan, but skip Medivision.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So I am looking at it. Medivision, every time they request money to fund the account, it just makes me sick.
And I mean, I'll just do a little years that, yes, it's a lot for health insurance, you know, but you also have to look at it, the town pays significantly less if some of these jobs were in the private sector. So that's part of their benefit, very nice benefit, but that's part of the pay is better benefit versus actual.
Well, and we struggle particularly with police. The wages for police officers in this state over the last almost 10 years just go. And towns bid against each other and try to buy officers from their next door neighbor. And that goes on constantly. And we like to say, where are we competitively with wages? Well, we're not in bad shape, but we're nowhere near a leader in police or in EMTs. Or enough that we're pretty well getting people a little short on police, as we have been for the last few years. But we've got some more candidates coming in, so maybe now is when we get over that hurdle. But those people, as they should, as individuals, they look at the pay, they look at the health insurance, et cetera. And particularly in southern Maine, the bidding up of sign-on bonuses for police has been just stupid. We're well past $10,000 apiece as a sign-on bonus. We have that a little smarter about it in that we don't hand it to them on the second day. They have to stay over a period of years and they get a piece of it as they go on, because some places were really being abused badly, paying a sign-on bonus to someone who only stayed 30 days. So that's over, but still the bidding up of price for police in particular and real paramedics continues at some level.
But let's just make sure that if there's a shortage of people and abundance of,
That's right.
I think,
In healthcare, you can get part of it at 30 days, you get the next part at 90 days, and then you have to stay like 18 months or 2 years. If you don't, they'll mail you vacation money and that stuff, and you don't get it.
With the police, we're a little longer out than that, but
Yeah, but we
that
were
idea.
at 10, we were talking 2,500 at the time. But that was kind of like, it is the same thing in healthcare, the physical therapists, they pay them up front and then off they go. So they think, all right, you'll get this in 30 days,
Yeah, right.
you know, that kind of thing. And we had to sign an agreement that you stay that long.
How many employees do we have under insurance?
51 full-time right now.
and the workers' comp, because we insure that self-insured.
It's through MMA.
Oh, it's only me.
Yeah.
I'm
The
assuming,
self-insured is the unemployment.
Okay.
I'm assuming like the part-time employees.
Pardon?
Like the
They don't
part-time
have health
employees
insurance.
probably don't.
No, no, they do not. And we only have 3 right now.
Well, we have all the summer.
Right, but permanent,
What do you consider full-time?
huh?
What do you consider full-time? 32 or 40?
30,
40, except when we've got someone at a little less than 32, where we can save some money.
yeah.
But there's very little of that.
Do you have any employees that are not residents of Lincoln?
Oh, absolutely.
There's,
The police chief and I wave to each other on I-95 daily.
I know you did, so please, less.
The
Yeah,
police chief
there's-
lives in Hamden.
most of the other employees live, within 20 minutes of Lincoln. I'm not gonna tell you where everybody lives, but there's some people in Medway, there's some in Infield, there's, your firefighters and your police officers are usually the ones that are further out. And they come in for their 10-hour shift or their 12-hour shift or their 24-hour shift. Some of the firefighters I've seen do 3 straight days at the station. And that way they don't have to
It
commute
used to
as
be a
much.
requirement that,
Yeah.
like, police and Navy fire, Navy department heads, but that got waived a long time ago.
Yeah.
because it
You
required
couldn't
them
find
to do that.
anybody.
You can't say, no, come look and buy, you buy $1,000 house to here.
This has gone to a place that many of us might not have imagined. I certainly didn't. I have a good friend who was a battalion fire chief in Delray Beach, Florida. They have many people from the Carolinas who are there 3 months of the year, living in the station, day and night. They're there. They go away for 3/4 of the year, don't return at all. They've gone back to the Carolinas where they actually live, which puts them in a position where when they want to call in personnel, additional personnel, many of them don't show up, and scheduling training is an absolute nightmare. And if the unions thought they could get us there, they would. However, I'll fight pretty hard.
I would say 90% of our employees all live within half an hour.
Yes. But Bangor Fire now has people who are pulling a trick like that and live in York County or even in New Hampshire, so.
There are a lot of companies like Versant that think you have to be within so many miles of the office that you work in.
And maybe if we, I don't know how you would just, the town office staff, how are you gonna tell them they all have to be Lincoln residents?
You know, like I say,
Yeah.
companies do it all the time.
People hire them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say it, but
Having a hard time hiring now, it's like, gonna do.
Yeah,
yeah, it would be a ghost town.
Did we get any traction, last year, for budget meeting, we talked about, especially police, going to the military. Folks come out, retired from the military.
Well, we certainly look at them more than we do people who've come from some other places. But as far as are we getting an inpouring of people of that sort? No. You recall last year's budget committee, every third answer from at least one person on the budget committee was the military can do that. That person doesn't have to be here.
I threaten every once in a while to go work for the police, and Rick tells me I can't. Because I'm former military and I did security. Rick tells me I can't, so I don't.
Every department in the town, there's only one employee. So if you work for the fire department, your employer's ID number is the same as if you work out here on the front counter. They're all one. So overtime starts to count at 40. And so if she works 40 hours doing what she's doing and then goes and works 10 hours a week in the police department, she's then on 100% overtime.
And at my pay rate, not a police
Yes,
pay rate.
that's right.
I just have to wait till I retire.
I will say this, the new police chief, I think, is doing how we do it.
I think he's gonna be very good, yes.
I met with him, he seemed to be very nice. I was gonna brag about my twins off. Well, he did fabulous for that, the death we had at Folsom, like 2 years ago. I mean, they should have had a video on him for training module.
Yeah.
Well, okay, 2 years ago, you're thinking of Mark Leonard.
No, Mike Winslow is a cop.
Oh,
He's the cop that
yeah.
came and helped carry Belanger when Don died. And
Yeah.
he was wonderful. There was a little 5-year-old little girl there, like within 8 feet of her dead grandfather. He was wonderful.
So see it on the retirement, I think just the overall item says 204,751, but under the actual item, it says the ICMA is 64,000 and 269. Is that just?
My formula didn't carry out.
Okay.
That should be 269. $8. I hardly ever have a formula error on my sheets, but there you go. Yeah, it doesn't pull up to the top of the sheet.
So instead of a decrease, we're probably looking at like a $7,000 overall.
Yeah. I don't know why I have it as a decrease. I might have to look at my other formulas.
Oh, wait, no, because then, never mind. There's the farm request, 6,000 has 6,000 for the, that would be.
Oh, that's for the paid family medical leave. That's the 6,000.
On the overall,
Oh, is my spreadsheet wrong too?
yeah,
Right.
Wow.
okay.
Oh, it's pointing to the wrong place. Yeah, there we go. Oh, and look, last year's number on, I've got some funky things going on here.
Mhm.
That's why it's a draft. I'm gonna check
I
all
thought
of
it
it.
was.
Yeah.
Mine.
Yeah, I was all excited.
Hold on, I'm gonna look at last year's number here real quick, just to make sure that.
So I'm assuming, because I looked at the overall, so I'm assuming once somebody could get fixed, there was a overall decrease.
Oh, yeah.
From 227,000, so for 227,000, I'm assuming
Yeah,
it'll be.
it'll be about the same.
Everything's done, and there's gonna
Yeah.
be some type of, probably $100,000 increase.
I have all sorts of things messed up on that sheet. So yes, it should be 269. This is a all of the whole budget is, got a lot of formulas in it, but this personnel budget in particular does, because I have to pull everybody's wages, I have to pull everybody's retirements, everybody's health insurance, and I have hidden sheets that you're not seeing here that have all this formulas.
Consumer ones is 70%.
And then, of course, paid family medical leave. I guess there's something before to.
There are multiple items before
that
the
as well.
legislature at this time, some to just plain flat out get rid of it, some to force it all onto the employee so that the employer pays none, some to force it all onto the employer so that the employees pay none. We'll see where they go.
And this currently is just the non-union, because we have to wait until union contracts are negotiated to even start doing the
That's
union
part of the
withdrawals.
existing law, yes.
Yeah, but if it gets revoked or changed,
But you only have one union you have to deal with right now.
no.
We have one we're negotiating with immediately. We have 3 unions in
I
total.
know, but you dealt with the other two last year.
We dealt with all of them 2 years ago.
You didn't deal with any of them last year,
Usually on the previous cycle,
3-year cycle?
except for fire, which, right?
Well, okay, let me go through this again. 2 years ago, we negotiated with all 3 unions. I tried for 3-year contracts with all 3 of them. That's the maximum you can have with public employees in the state of Maine, so pointless to go for anything more. And police and public works agreed to 3-year contracts. Because fire was asking to go from a 56-hour work week to a 42, they recognized that it was unlikely they would get any substantial pay raise and get that, because they were looking at their pay as, here's what it is, we can work 56 hours for it, or we can work 42 hours for it. They did not take any reduction because of the number of hours their work week was reduced. But they would only sign up for a 2-year contract because they weren't very happy with the idea that increases were not coming at that point. They understood it, and they wanted to get, I'll say here now, you, to vote in favor of changing their work week. That happened. So now they're back at the end of 2 years. You have a 3-year deal with them, and they're coming back, and they are saying quite boldly, we're seeking money. Just as simple as that.
And then next year, you'll negotiate with them.
Yes, I'm going to try with fire to get a 3-year deal now. See how successful I am. The other 2 will be up next year.
Anything else with personnel? And the only thing we've covered tonight.
In general, I look back 5 years and look at the labor wages over the last 5 years, and the curve is really taken off.
No question, no question. Not just us by any stretch, but that is the way it is.
I just wanted to need to start looking at offshore plans.
Well, what would be the option? I'd be interested.
I think there's a lot of room in years down in the Carolinas where we come together as a much, instead of just Lincoln negotiating, you know, how, you just take Penobscot County in general, say, as Penobscot County, we've got this many employees, and let's sit down and talk about it. Much bigger in numbers than you are when you line up between small towns, I think, small town Lincoln, and yeah, no leverage whatsoever. Negotiation, you gotta have leverage, or you can't push back.
I don't disagree.
It's gonna have to come from a much higher level, it's gonna have to come through county commissioners.
County right now is totally focused on fire jail. Exactly what they're focused on. And the cost of that to this town's taxes will be 7th in the county. Bangor, Brewer, Arnold, Old Town, Hamden, Herman, and then Lincoln's 7th largest. And we'll really see it.
Yeah, I would imagine you can see the wage.
I don't know where it stops. Obviously, at some point in history, it slows, but I don't know when that is.
No, you see that, but you see the cost of everything. I mean,
I-
COVID, we saw, like, what, 35% increases on stuff, like, year over year. Yeah,
I mean, the CPI for years is running 3%, maybe 5 times. And you can go back 20 years or 30 years, and that CPI, that's all, that rate. And now that CPI possibly skyrocketed because of COVID. But instead of slowing back down to 2%, it's still quite much faster than it needs to be. Because the tariff issue is just fueling the fire.
Anything else? Rick, you can adjourn.
Hey, how many